everybody, this is Hanmak, your girl on the Total Woman podcast, and you're welcome to today's edition. This will be following up the issues of family as a deterrent to purpose, right? So we have talked about family as a deterrent to purpose, but I want to revisit the whole concept of family. You know, we have the church family, we have the family, we have the extended family, and we have all sorts of family. For your friends turn to family, you have people who we really consider even closer than family. So all of that put together, that's the family we're talking about, right? Good. Not the dictionary definition of family, but guess what? In expanding this a form of family and expanding it in a larger scale, it helps us to address various issues, because it's the people that you consider family that eventually do the most harm. Good. So going back, I love the concept of family. I think I really do, and anybody who is normal should, because it gives us a type of support system that is not obtainable anywhere else, right? So it's supposed to uplift, right? Good. It's supposed to uplift you, give you a sense of belonging, having people that you can lean on, people you can call on the days of trouble, and people that who stand your ride or die. Sets of people come from family or should come from family. But that's wonderful if you have that, and I trust that God gives you that, or whatever you believe in gives you that. I trust that we all find that at different levels of our lives. But I'm concentrating more on the fact that the same thing that was supposed to make you can actually mar you, right? As much as I appreciate family, I understand that not everybody has family, and people find families at different levels. That's why I talked about friends turning family. God gives you a particular niche that you can call your own, and you go and you're able to feel free and relax and feel accepted. So one of the major things for me in family would be the sense of acceptance. Right? Acceptance that I don't need to be a particular way to be accepted. I don't need to conform to a particular stereotype or boxed into a corner to be accepted, but I am accepted regardless, with my excesses, with things that I am still working on, and accepting the fact that I'm a work in progress, right? So put together, those are things that you expect to find in family, right? Good. So I want to talk about me today and some of the things that inform some of the decisions I've taken in life, and what some of the things that have helped me to find family in different places in life, right? Good. So this is the story of how Hanmak found herself, right? Okay, so yeah, I'll take you back. I think the first time I experienced the ugliness of family was at age 4. I think, yes, age 4, the night before my 4th birthday. This was what happened, and this is how it came about. So my mom bought me a gift and kept it in her room, and I saw the gift and I was excited about it, and I wanted to check it. My birthday is 3rd June, so I wanted to check it out on the 2nd. Then I wanted to check the gift out, and she said, no, it's not possible. You can only open it on the day of your birthday, because that's supposed to be a surprise, right? So 3-year-old girl, completely excited, wanting to see her gift. And on that day in the morning, I woke up and I remembered I had a gift in my mom's room. So I wanted to run through to go and pick that gift and open it. I was too excited. So leaving my room, there was a corridor, a passage that I had to run through. On coming out, one of my uncles just saw me and was so angry. And just picked me up and took me outside and flogged the bejesus out of me. He said he had been telling me not to run in the corridor, and I ran in the corridor. So he flogged the bejesus out of me. In my shouting, because he literally had to wet the cane before he was flogging my bum bum. And my parents heard my shouting, and they came out to ask, what's happening? And he said, this girl, if we don't curtail her now, she's going to be very stubborn. And he has taken it upon himself to make sure that I don't turn out that way, and all of that. And my mom just looked, she was so shocked. You could see how broken she was. And my dad just looked at him and didn't say a word. And he just opened his arms for me to come and run into them. And he just hugged me. And he was saying, it's okay, it's okay. And he told me, happy birthday, dear. Today you are 4. And my uncle was so shocked. Then it's like he finally understood that the reason why I was running in the first place, it was because it was my birthday and I was going to check out my parents to get my gift. And he said, well, he didn't know it was my birthday and all that. Shortly after that, I think there were some episodes that were very traumatic. The fact that I remember it at the age of 3 tells you that it was an indelible mark in my life. Then fast forward, from that age 4, there were back-to-back things that happened that I think I suppressed for a very long time. When I became a teenager, I started realizing that there was this dream I always wake up to that shakes me. I'm sweating, and it's as if something just overwhelms me, and I can't even explain that in English completely, because I didn't know what was going on completely. But there's this terrifying dream that I have, and it just shakes me in ways that I can't explain. And it kept on going to my junior secondary school, to my secondary school, senior secondary school. It continued till I finished secondary school, and it was something that shook me up so much. But I forgot completely. I did not know what it was. So it's like after a while, when something shakes me up to a particular level, I start having those dreams in succession, yes, like that over time. So I forgot about it. Then taking you back to I think I was in GS2, just three. I was a day student, and I came back home, and my dad was having a meeting in the parlor with a friend of his. So I went to the bathroom to take my bath. I came back out of the bathroom, and well, I'm an only child, but I never really lived alone. So one of my cousins came into the house, and naturally, my dad said she's it's the only handbag that is in the house, and she's inside. So he came into the room, and I had just come out from the bathroom. So I was in the room with my towel, and he came in and met me with my towel, and suddenly just pounced on me with my towel, and we started struggling, and the only thing I had was a towel because I just came out from the bathroom. He suddenly pounced on me and just kept on. I couldn't shout because I was feeling too embarrassed, because I felt, why would I shout? And then if it was my dad alone in the parlor, I wouldn't have been too embarrassed, I think. But because it was not just him, and it was his friend, and if they had come into the room at that point, they would have found me naked. I think I was not very okay with that. I think I was in just 2, which makes me around 12 or 13, thereabout. And the tussle went on and on until, and I was hearing my dad discussing, and I just kept on praying, Father, send me help. Lord, send me help. Just if you were truly here and you were somewhere, just send me help, because I can't go down this path. The whole concept of rape was very vivid in my mind, and I was not willing to allow that happen to me. So we kept on struggling, and God, he was strong. Was very strong. And then a cousin of mine came in, and I heard my dad said, they're inside. Go and check them inside. They're inside. They're in the room, because he was in quite a serious meeting. And they're inside. Go and check them inside. And he just came in, and I saw an eye. Where you see through the cracks of a door, you just keep seeing an eye just moving, darting left, right, left, right. I was wondering what was happening. Can't you see I'm about to be raped? Why can't you come in and save the day? But also, of course, the shame culture. I also had conditions in my mind. Is that when it's not like I was communicating it, all of those conversations were in my mind. If you're coming in, I need you to come in and come in quietly and save the day without making noise, and make sure to shut up about it. Just help me and shut up, And those were the things that were going on in my mind. And then my dad suddenly said, he saw him by the curtain just opened, and he saw him. I said, you're still there. Why can't you go inside and go and check them inside? Are they not there? He wanted to come, and because he knew if my father had come, what he would come and see was not going to be a lovely picture. So he just pushed the door and entered. And that was what saved me. I think I was at my wit's end and helpless. And I think for me, it was the helplessness of the situation, the powerlessness. How I felt so powerless in that situation. And when he came in, I didn't say anything. I just stood up. I dressed up and left. I just dressed up and went out, and we continued life as if it was nothing. But one thing, I made 2 decisions that day. I was never going to have anything to do with those 2 cousins of mine. One who was attempting to rape me, the other one who saw it and kept quiet. I think I was mostly angry, not at the one who wanted to rape me, but at the one who saw it and kept quiet. So you see, all those memories were shoved down very deep, and I moved on with life as nothing happened. Fast forward, I finished my secondary school, came back, and then went for a program. My parents are very godly sets of people, and we attended a lot of Christian programs. So we're in one of those programs, and when you're coming from the religious circle, there's this concept of righteousness, according to them, that there's a sense of righteousness. And on this particular day program that we went, I think it was an FCS program, and which personally I feel that it was a little bit twisted, but then that was what was obtainable at that time, and it was more of virginity. They were discussing the concept of virginity. And they're talking about how it doesn't matter. People talk about people give different excuses for not being virgins. Like people give excuses, and medical people even talk about how it is I can do hard work, and then hymen should not just be broken like that. But God requires that. So if you have lost it here, even if it is by hard work or whatever it is, medium, stand up and let him pray for you, because you are still a sinner. He said the thing. So, and I don't know, I wasn't necessarily concentrating, because I cannot even claim to be so much of a serious Christian at that time. I was not really concentrating, but it's kind of like hit me hard that day. And you know how you're sitting down and waiting for the program to end, so you go home because you were there under duress, because your parents needed you to be there, and you were there in obedience to them. And it went on like that. And it just hit me hard. And it was like, it doesn't matter how you've lost your virginity and all of that. Fast forward back, I came back home, and I remember I started by telling you the traumatic experiences that I never really remembered were shoved down in memory lane and buried very deep. And I went back home with a lot of episodes that day. I barely could sleep. I shut my eye, one memory after the other. It's like something was unlocked, and the barrage of images that were just flooding my mind that night. I think for 3 days I was miserable. It's either age 4 being sexually abused by my cousin, or let's say foster brother. At different stages of my life, the abuse continued. I'm not sure I remember exactly when it stopped or when it started, but that was when every memory became very vivid. It was as if a door to memory lane was opened, and I realized I had successfully suppressed it. So even the one I just told you about, which I remember, but I know that I intentionally decided to forget, and all of that, put together different scenarios of growing up with family and how I felt abused emotionally, physically, in different dimensions, just came flooding all at once, and it tormented me. I think it went on for about 3 days, until a day I just walked up to my dad and I told him. So that message, I think the approach was, I needed to understand. And what I wanted to understand was that whole concept of doom, of being not being a virgin, that whole doom thing, how does it work? That I'm doomed because I sinned, when all of this was not my fault. I think that's where I was coming from a righteous place, that for fact that all of this was not my fault. I didn't call this on myself. At 4, it was difficult for me to attract a man at the age 4. So if anybody could find me attractive at age 4, it meant that the person was very, very sick and was problematic. And, and then going forward, age 6, you're talking about different things. At age 10, you're talking at different stages of my life where one thing or the other happened, and all of that. And all of them were family. And the whole concept of us in the African culture, this cousin to this person is living with you, your brother's child, your brother's uncle, your brother's, we just gather, and it's like the one person who has made it a little bit wants to help people, wants to gather people and just help everybody. So people are gathered, you're choked in this room. The whole the sense of privacy is lost. You don't even know where boundary starts or where it ends. So whole sense of privacy is lost. You don't have privacy. Anywhere you find to sleep is where you find. Do you get? So the whole, I was an only child who grew up not necessarily understanding what it really meant to be an only child, because there were always people. Do you understand? I never really had a bed to myself by myself. So it's like a lot of accumulated things that you do not even know it was abuse in the first place. Do you get? So it's like it woke me up to the reality that I was a very traumatized child, and I grew up in a very traumatized environment, and I just didn't realize it, and all of that. As I'm talking to you, different memories flood. I remember the man who came I had an uncle who came to the house to come and teach us sex. And I was wondering, he said, what? We asked the question, what was sex? He was fully aroused and wanted to practicalize it with us. And I was in GS1, and I was age 11. And he wanted to show me what sex looks like, and you wonder what exactly goes wrong in people's head. And we're quite trusting. I think that's where I'm also buttressing. We're quite trusting, which means that this is my brother. He will not do anything to my own. This is my sister. This is my niece. And simply because we have familial ties doesn't mean all of us are well. We're mostly not well, emotionally not well, psychologically not well, mentally highly unstable. And different backgrounds coming in one place, and there's no boundaries. You're making everybody making sure that everybody has somewhere to himself, not trying to make anybody feel left out, unwanted. this is home, feel free, relax. And in all of that, everybody took advantage of the situation and did all they wanted to do and all of that. But then the whole idea was I walked up to my dad's room and I just told him, I said, hey, so about that message that we heard on Friday, that was on a Sunday. I said, so about that message that we heard on Friday, what exactly was that man talking about? He said, what exactly am I talking about? I said, so he was talking about the whole doomsday of virginity and the whole idea that you have no gift to give your husband, you have all of that and all of that. So I said, so if a child was raped at age 4, does that mean the child is no longer a virgin? He said, technically, yes. But then he went all theological on me. The Bible says where all things are new, life is passed away. It's not like I can ask Oyele to tell me the scripture. And I'm not sure he's a Christian. Oyele, do you remember this scripture? Is all things are new. Okay, I was just Corinthians 5:17. Behold, all things have become new. So you see, and so he went all theological about that, but I could see it shook him for me to ask a question. And I was really asking from an educational point of view. All I wanted to know was that, am I doomed or I'm not doomed? Am I still a virgin or I'm not a virgin? That was what I really wanted to understand and all of that. Even when it was not my fault, did I owe it to God to apologize to him for what he allowed to happen to me when it was not my fault, And we went on in that conversation for a while. And he said, so what are my questions? I said, no, I don't want him to quote scripture in this season. I just want him to tell me what it is. He said, yes, technically I'm not a virgin. I said, okay. So, and it repeatedly happened. It means that pretty much you're very much sexually active then. He said, yes. I said, okay. Thank you. He said, any other question? I said, no, thank you. I think it was later on in life that my mom had to tell me that day my dad broke down and he told her to follow her daughter. What is it? And knowing my father enough, I knew that he was going to send an emissary, either come by himself or send an emissary, which my mom in that case, to come confirm what exactly happened. And my mom came and asked me and said, all those questions you're asking, did they happen to you? And I said, yes, of course. So she couldn't ask any further. So they went back and took turns crying and breaking down and imagining what happened to their daughter. I think it took my dad like 3 days also to be able to get his emotions in check and come and ask me to give him every detail of every gory detail that had happened to me. And I told him, I'm not sure we talked after that. He just heard it and he was more broken than I was and went back. But I think at that moment I felt, what the hell? What do I need? This whole virginity thing is a hoax. Because if God really required virginity, he would have made sure that to keep me a virgin. If he really required me to live holy and an abstinent life, I think he had control of all those people who did me harm. In fact, I think he owes me an apology for allowing all those things to have happened to me and make sure that also all this while that I've been maintaining myself. I had gone into the university. I was in the remedial department then in university, and I was like keeping myself, chastity and all that. I own me, and I'm no, I'll do it on my terms and all that. Not have sex. I'll only have sex on my terms and all of that. All of that was crap because I didn't own me because somebody had gone ahead and manhandled me without my permission. I was helpless and couldn't do nothing about it. And this person just took from me what I was keeping for myself and whoever was it, the future husband or all that. So I felt the whole concept of chastity was wrong and it was misguided. I felt that all of that put together, I was not very crazy about God in that season. I was not very crazy about men in that season. And going further, I realized that it informed a lot of misguided decisions that I took, which meant for me that, okay, what the hell? It was time to go and try finding out if sex was pleasurable in the first place. And let me find out for myself. So it was a sex spree to go and find out what exactly sex is all about and all of that. Because after all, I was keeping myself and there's no point. And since any man can just wake up and just decide to just rape you and take that power away from you and just to malhandle you and feels that you are an object and can be objectified, I decided, number one, not to be defined by my sexuality, which meant that I wanted to be more than what was in between my legs or what I had to offer, which was to born children. Born picking, basically. So, which was coming from a place of pain, which in retrospect, good, but very misguided. And some decisions that I took, which was simple to just have fun. Yeah. So whatever I wanted to do, let me do it and do it with the whole of my heart. Since obviously that ship has sailed. We are not part of the Virgin's crew. So we might as well just go ahead and do what we wanted to do and just have fun and just forget that existed. And I realized that it was a way of coping. And the next day, when I finished that conversation with my dad, the next day I left home immediately. I went back to school because I was staying in the hostel then. And I left and went back to school because I didn't want to have that conversation further. And I never opened the door. I think I never discussed it with my parents again, ever. And my dad passed on 2 years ago now. I never discussed it again. And I was not, I'm not sure I've ever had that conversation with anybody on an in-depth level, apart from just saying it on the surface. Yeah, I was raped. Beyond that, nothing. But I also realized that it informed a lot of my decisions, and it blindsided me to a lot of aspects of life that have hindered full manifestation. Why? I don't really take family too seriously. Why? Because I felt that the same people that were meant to protect me were the people that caused me harm. Right. And I felt at some point, I think I was also offended with my parents because the same people that were supposed to protect me from all of this allowed it to come and find me, which meant that I had no safe space because of the kind of people that they gathered, who were not necessarily very conscious of the fact that there was a child who needed to be protected, and they did what they needed to do. And some of them decided to get off their sexual fantasies on me and all of that put together. So I think I was a very angry adult. Yeah, growing adult. So that's borderline age 19 to about 23. Was a very rough time in my life, which meant that fully coming to terms with the fact that I felt unwanted. I struggled with rejection. I felt unwanted because I felt I was used and damaged, which religion gave me that concept already, that because I had nothing to offer a man, because I had no virginity, and a lot of other things, which when I say religion, please, I would like to say the misguided version of religion that I got at that time, form of Christianity that I got at that time, which was more of self-righteousness and a lot of other things put together, put me in a very bad place that was not very healthy. And in between that, so it's like I almost borderline couldn't even bring myself to have tangible relationships. So it affected relationships for me. It affected a lot of things. I didn't put too much stock in family. So it's like at the end of the day, everybody, there was I kept everybody at an arm's length. The only person who was in my inner circle was my mother and my father, which I had to learn to forgive, because I felt they were negligent. So I had to learn to come to a place of forgiveness, to forgive them for that part of exposing me too early, too soon to those kind of things in the name of we are doing our Christian duty to help, to be helpful and all of that. So that was my journey with family. So I realized that as much as family is meant to build, if not guarded, if not guided, it could genuinely become your undoing. That's one. So friends that were supposed to be family, there were a lot of things that I was not saying. I was just non-incommunicado. There were a lot of things that I just never had deep friendships. So friendships that were supposed to turn sisters, friendships that were supposed to turn brothers, I never really let anybody that deep into my space. Everybody I handled at an arm's length. Everything was micromanaged for what you can hear and what I can handle right now in this season. So I realized I was deeply traumatized child, and it's possible that you can genuinely not remember. So when you watch movies where they'll tell you that they're trying to help you remember all those things, I know it all too well, because I know that it's possible for you to bury something so down deep that you cannot remember. So it never even comes to mind. You can't even bring it up in conversation because it's something that is like you compartmentalize, that they are in far places. So yes, family, for me, family can be a deterrent to purpose. I think that's why I came to the fact that if not guided properly, it can really build you up, and it's a beautiful thing to have. But I'm not sure as Africans we understand boundaries in families. I'm not sure as Africans we understand do's and don'ts. Do you understand who to call family, where to draw the boundary? Your uncle's child is not necessarily, it must not be in your space. That you can be helpful from a distance. It doesn't have to come into your space because there's something you're guarding. That we realize that in some aspects of our lives, we're still pretty much fragile in those emotional spaces, and we cannot handle it yet. So we guard what comes into that space until we're mature enough to be able to handle it, So we have traumatized parents. So, and when I look back, it was easier for me to forgive my dad and my mom, because I look back, it was like you were one of those few people who started up, coming up and earning. And so it was natural that, how they'll be giving birth to plenty people, and we go to the village till date, they'll be giving plenty people, and they're waiting for people to, when you get work, you come and carry one. When you get work, you come and carry another person. When you get work, and then somehow we're duty bound because of the small money they contributed when you were going to school, and they fetched something maize to give you, or they gave you rice, or they gave you something. Somehow you remember that goodness that was done to you, and you can't help but want to repay it back at the expense of your family. So I saw that my dad was traumatized, and he couldn't handle it better. He was very involved, very present, and a lot of that, but that was the only thing that I felt that he felt he needed to pay. So it's like he overdid. Yes. So don't get me started. My dad, who would tell us his story, he said from GS3 he had to pay his school fees from GSS3, and at that point he had to. It's like he lived on the generosity of God. Just kept on raising people, and each year he did not know who was going to pay the school fees, but that's how, when he reached WAEC and NECO, because he was the best student at that time in the school, the principal had to pay for him before he finished school, and then went and, I'm not, what is concrete in English? Manual labor. Yes, manual labor. He had to do manual labor to be able to come back and pay his WAEC and NECO fee to be able to make it work. Do you understand? He graduated, and his juniors who were escorting him out of school to his home had to borrow him slippers. So when he reached the gate and reached the door, right? He reached the door, then it was returned. He had to give them back their slippers, and an Igbo man by the junction saw it, and he was moved and had to give him a new slippers from the shop. That's how bad his was. So it's like he lived off generosities of different people at different stages, and somehow he felt the need to repay it back by a lot of extra generosity at different levels. So they just kept coming and coming and coming. So it was natural that we were at the receiving end of his generosity. So he sees here, he packs, he brings here, he brings from there. I remember in my 100 level, I was asking my dad for money for some handouts, and he was telling me that's what you need them now, because the money he has now, there are some students he met. He traveled to Latin, and there are some students he met. The money he has on him now, he wants to buy a carton of textbook, maths and English. So I should escort him to the market to go and buy the textbooks. When I finished buying it, I came back and he told me honestly he doesn't have any money. I should go to school. He'll figure it out and send within the week. I just wept and went to my uncle's house to go and report to my father. And my uncle had to come out and tell him, Mr. Lado, are you okay? My dad was so shocked how I reported him, because for the life of me, I cannot wrap my head how you could not give me to go and give people that I do not know. Now, in retrospect, I understand that it was overcompensating for where he was coming from. So there were traumas, wounds that had not healed, things that he had not allowed himself to experience, and passed through them. And now when I look at it from mental health, I understand that from the mental health perspective, I understand that you're going to have to allow yourself to face those things and actually experience them in the moment. The emotions you have to revisit those dark places and experience them afresh so that you can find healing. And one of those ways I was actually talking about it. And as you can see, all of you are now part of my healing process as I'm talking about it now, explicitly and expressively. And I hope I find healing, and I hope whoever is listening somewhere finds healing too, and understand that there's no shame in that journey. If your journey of healing, there's no shame in that journey. Guess what? There is more. Follow us on our social media platforms on Facebook and Instagram at the Total Woman Podcast for more. Guess what? There is more. You want to hear my shady stories, right? There is more to hear. See you on the next episode. Bye.